The other big breaking story this hour is happening in Los Angeles. The city's downtown is effectively a no-go zone because of violence over the Trump administration raids targeting migrants. LA is now ground zero for a test of presidential power and questions over how far Donald Trump could go. That's just one scene from a weekend filled with explosive clashes between protesters and police. That group of officers sheltering under a highway overpass, fireworks, chunks of concrete, street signs, all raining down on them. Hundreds of California National Guard troops are also confronting protesters, ordered there in an extraordinary move by President Donald Trump. Trump could go even further, testing U.S. law by sending in hundreds of active duty Marines.
We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart.
The bar for sending Marines to
the bar is what I think it is. I mean, if we see danger to our country and to our citizens, we'll be very, very strong in terms of law and order. It's about law and order.
These are images LA officials warned would provoke Trump. Vehicles set on fire, protesters clashing with police. And police say they have made dozens of arrests. It's a major story, and we're watching it with team coverage for you this hour. Steve Futterman live on the scene in downtown Los Angeles, as close to that area as he can get, where we saw the protests over the weekend. And in Washington, Richard Madden has more on the political angle. Richard, just stand by for a moment or two, if you would, because I'm going to begin with Steve. Again, back to downtown Los Angeles. It is now, Steve, we've been checking in hour by hour. So it's just after 5 o'clock in Los Angeles. It was pretty quiet in the early hours of the overnight hours there. Any increase in activity? What are you seeing now?
Not really, Heather. This area, which is City Hall's right behind me, this area has been completely cordoned off. You do have some people walking in the area, but no vehicles outside of the news media and law enforcement being allowed here right now. It comes, of course, after this very, very really disturbing weekend where you had these confrontations go on. They began on Friday, continued Saturday, and then increased last night. And last night, the violence got even worse. We had situations where people were calling in some of those vehicles, those driverless vehicles, and setting them on fire. There was some looting in some of the downtown area, and that's a big concern. Heather, to me, the big concern today is, are there going to be more raids? If there are more raids like there were on Friday, there weren't any this weekend, I think that's going to inflame already heightened tensions. And I think law enforcement officials are quite concerned as well. Last night we heard from the LA police chief, Jim McDonald. He basically said what his team is doing right now isn't working totally. Take a listen.
This thing has gotten out of control. I think before I could answer that, I'd have to know more about what their capabilities are, what their role is intended to be able to make that determination. We have tremendous capability here. To say that we would go to that right away, I'd say we wouldn't have been there yet. Looking at the violence, I think we got to make a reassessment.
And Heather, that's not a good word to hear from a police chief. Reassessment means what they're doing right now isn't working. Now, there have been arrests of around, I'd say around 50, 60 people from these confrontations. There have also been some ICE arrests of over 100 people from the weekend. We don't know if those are just detainees or other people who were arrested by federal officials, but there have been a number of arrests. And people say they're going to come back today, too. Let's listen to some of the protesters that were here this weekend.
I think it's a scare tactic. People think if you scare them, they'll go home. It's a little overkill right now. A lot of the people are just peacefully protesting. As you can tell, we're not being violent. We're just trying to be loud.
I think that's honestly what's heartbreaking the most, because they're making it seem like they're really bad people, like criminals, and when they're not, when they're just trying to work hard for their own families.
So that is what the protesters are saying. They show no sign of not coming back. Of course, on the weekend, you have people who will come out more than they will on a weekday. But on a weekday, you have people going to work. And if ICE wants to go after these areas where we know there are undocumented immigrants, places like the Home Depot where you have people day laborers trying to get jobs each day. If they want to go there, they'll be able to pick up some people. If they want to go to the garment district to my right, we know there are lots of undocumented workers who work there. If they want to do these raids, they can do them. In Los Angeles, the LA area, it's estimated up to 1 million undocumented residents live. Now, of course, Gavin Newsom, Mayor Bass, they are urging Donald Trump to remove the National Guard. The National Guard didn't get involved in any of the confrontations yesterday, Heather, but they are a symbol. And that symbol, again, has heightened tensions. It's gotten people very, very angry. It's a symbol that Newsom and Bass say they did not want to have here. They feel that has increased the tensions, maybe increased the violence. Again, one of the key things today, are there going to be more raids? And is the violence, if we have more violence, is it going to spread? So far, it's just been in downtown LA, a bit in the city of Paramount on Saturday, and to the Chinatown area to my right here. It has not been widespread, but if it continues, if there are more heightened activities and people get more angry, you could see some of the violence and the confrontation spread. That, I think, Heather, is what people are really worried about.
Steve Futterman, live in Los Angeles, thank you very much. Listening to what Steve's reporting on, it makes you think about history, and lots of articles reminding us the last time a U.S. president sent National Guard troops in to deal with civil unrest without the cooperation of a state governor, that was Alabama, 1965. So let's talk more about what is behind this push from Donald Trump and Richard in Washington on the political angle. There's a real drumbeat, Richard, of social media posts from the U.S. president about the protests and the violence. Here's a little sampling, a message where Trump seizes on the remarks from the L.A. police chief and urges him to use the National Guard troops now in Los Angeles. He's also weighing, as I was talking with Steve about, weighing whether to send additional military, potentially from, as you heard there, from the reserves. So how is he justifying this response?
Yeah, good morning, Heather. Well, I think it looks like President Trump is justifying this as a law and order initiative, deploying the National Guard to control the violence. And if necessary, Trump says he may send in the Marines. That split screen moment, seeing the violence and unrest in Los Angeles, and Trump portraying himself as a president who can give that law and order. But from a political and strategic perspective, this appears to be a fight that Trump wants, creating this high-level showdown with a political rival in a deep blue state like California, putting the focus on his key policy of illegal immigration, being tough on rioters, contrasting that to the Democrats, portraying them as weak on immigration and borders. Here's President Trump ripping into California Governor Gavin Newsom and his ability to handle the unrest. Watch this.
Watch it very closely. There was a lot of violence there. There was a lot of violence, and it could have gotten much worse. And you have an incompetent governor. Just take a look at the train stations that he's building. Like 20 times over budget. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So I did call him the other night. I said, look, you got to take care of this. Otherwise, I'm sending in the troops. That's what we did.
Now, Trump since deployed some 2,000 National Guard troops against the wishes of Governor Newsom. And now Newsom blames Trump for stoking the violence, saying he's acting like a dictator by militarizing cities and inciting unrest by using the military against American citizens. Watch this.
Where's your decency, Mr. President? Stop. Rescind this order. It's illegal and unconstitutional. And I said it, I'll say it again, it's immoral. You're creating the conditions that you claim you're solving, and you're not. And you're putting real people's lives at risk.
Now, the last time the National Guard was federalized in California was back in the early 90s when President George Bush sent troops to control the riots in Los Angeles after the Rodney King beating. But as you noted earlier, Heather, this is the first time a president has deployed the National Guard without the request from the state's governor since the civil rights era back in the 60s. Now, LA's Mayor Karen Bass says there was enough law enforcement to handle the situations, but she says Trump's actions poured fuel on the fire. Watch.
It just seems like this is intentional chaos. You know, I had talked to representatives of the Trump administration earlier on to tell them that the Los Angeles Police Department could control things that were happening here and that there was no need to federalize troops. And so to have this here is really just a provocation.
Okay, and President Trump responding to this criticism on his social media site, I'm going to read it for you now, saying Governor Gavin Newsom, spelling it the way he wants to, and Mayor Bass should apologize to the people of Los Angeles for the absolutely horrible job they have done, and this now includes the ongoing LA riots. Trump goes on to say these are not protesters, they are troublemakers and insurrectionists. Remember, Trump says, no masks. Now, Trump has also threatened to arrest anyone who interferes with immigration enforcement. So essentially, he's pitting Democratic-leading California back in the spotlight and perhaps an example of Trump's immigration crackdown.
Any moves planned for Donald Trump today, Richard? What do we watch for specifically?
Yeah, I think we're going to watch for both President Trump and Governor Newsom. We know Governor Newsom plans to file a lawsuit against the administration. He argues the deployment of the National Guard without approval is unlawful and unconstitutional. But we're also likely going to hear from President Trump later today. We've seen he's been active on a social media site, but he may weigh in. He's returning from Camp David and will likely have a lot to say about the unrest and his immigration agenda.
Richard, thank you very much. Richard Madden is in Washington for us this morning.